Ken said, we're here to talk a little bit about connected mobility, EVs, and future cities. And so I think what we can do is keep it somewhat casual, but also just start with some introductions, and then we'll just kind of dive into the questions. I'll start with myself. I have been in the EV and mobility space for over a decade at this point. I was lucky enough early in my career to get in the door with a small startup by the name of Tesla, and helped launch the Model S, the Model X, and the Model 3. From there, I was able to dive into operational management, join the global operations team with Lyft, and kind of help them expand their operational footprint across North America in preparedness for the coming EV revolution, which we are now in my opinion. And then more recently, about a year ago, I got a call from Volta Charging, based out of San Francisco. And they said, hey, Andrew, we'd like to talk to you about solving some of these infrastructure questions. More importantly, how does it relate to the changing landscape in the Midwest and the city of Chicago? I've been able to do all these things, thankfully, here in the Chicagoland area, which is where I'm from. I'm from originally the northwest suburbs. I went to the University of Illinois, got my MBA at North Park University, which is on the northwest side of the city. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to have kind of built my career in an area that I'm passionate about, but also kind of do it someplace close to home. And so with that said, Megha, if you could introduce yourself.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Megha Lakhchaura, and I was recently, July 1, appointed by the governor as the job as EV coordinator or state EV officer, involved with most EV and EV infrastructure issues in the state. I've been working on the job since April, but the official confirmation happened July 1. Before that, I used to work at EV Box, had policy over there. EV Box is a manufacturer of charging stations. So for 4 years, been working on transportation electrification initiatives across the state and federal level, and all of that is helping right now. And look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I do apologize. I don't want to talk too loud because I don't have very good hearing out of my left ear. So my wife always says, you're talking so loud. So I don't apologize. I don't want to blow anyone's ear off here. My name is Tom Zembruski, fleet manager for Waukesha County. For those who are unfamiliar with that, just west of Milwaukee. Been in the industry for about 27 years. Been serving on the public side for about 9 years. Spent some time as the Deputy Director of Maintenance for Milwaukee County Transit. Was intimately involved with the specifications of the bus, including a lot of safety improvements and fuel economy improvements. Have moved now to the municipal side. I oversee the maintenance and specifications for Sheriff's Department, Highway Department, Parks Department, the airport, things of that nature. So just excited to be here, very passionate about the transition to EV and what the future looks like and technology that we're looking at. And thanks again for having me here today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sanjay Khunger. It's a pleasure really to represent Cognizant here at the Infra Day today. Cognizant, if people don't know, is actually a US headquartered technology services company with about 340,000 employees globally, and 2022 revenue is expected to be around just under 18 billion. So it's a large company, primarily working on a lot of technology services, I mentioned, all the way from IT services, cloud services, as well as development, delivery, and also now engineering services. We've been ramping up a lot of our product-related engineering services a lot in the mobility side. My own experiences is about 2 decades or so in mobility. I'm from the Detroit area. I'm responsible for for what we call the smart connected mobility offerings in the US. And within that, we enable a lot of the intelligent, connected mobility for automakers. We work with pretty much all the large automakers worldwide on their connectivity offerings, software-defined vehicle, development, delivery, validation, all of that, as well as the EVs and now autonomous vehicle and ADAS work that's been going on. across the mobility, transportation, and logistics vertical. As I mentioned, I'm based in Detroit for the last actually two plus decades now, and worked for General Motors. I was part of OnStar for well over a decade, and then after that, worked for Ford, and also fair number of years in the automotive industry, working on connected vehicles, and also I'm really looking forward to be part of this panel this morning. Thank you.
Excellent. So we'll just dive right in. Megha, first question is, with the state level goal of having 1 million EVs on the road in Illinois by 2030, what are some of the biggest opportunities you see or steps communities can take to prepare for an influx of EVs on the roads and in their communities?
I mean, 1 million is a long way to go. We're at 46,000 EVs at the moment, but the good news is we added almost 9,000 this year. And I suspect that if supply chain wasn't an issue, we'd see way more. Like, good luck buying an electric vehicle at this point of time. So we're seeing these vehicles come in. As a community, I think, there are a few things that, you would be concerned about, and one of the primary things is obviously having charging infrastructure, and there are a lot of opportunities for funding at this point of time. Like, we have state money. We're building some of the money on the corridors. Our utilities have submitted plans. We have money at the EPA. So looking at almost $500 million in the next 4 to 5 years. If approved at the commission, that's what it's totaling to. But besides that, the federal government also has grants to the tune of $2.5 billion where communities can go and apply for charging grants along with private entities. And this could pretty much fund 80% of your charging requirement. Besides that, the other things, and this is a good time to be aware of all of this, is, look out for the school bus rebates. Make sure that, there's $350,000 up to that, $275 to $350 to fund an electric bus. And federal government's giving, out that money at that point of time. And there's also dollars for charging. So as a community, I think the first thing is, at this point of time, is to just look out, see what the funding opportunity is, plan what you need for your community. Where do you want charging? At retail? Do you want it at the school? Do you want it, are you near a corridor? Kind of assess the situation. And, while you have all of these chances out there, go for it and apply for these grants.
That's excellent. Thank you. Tom, next to you. From a fleet perspective, what advice would you give to other municipalities regarding current and or future infrastructure?
Sure, thank you. So could I just get a show of hands? Anyone who's involved with fleet, vehicles, municipal, DPW in this room? Okay, so we have a couple people here. One of the things is we're all excited about the infrastructure bill that was passed. We're talking about what grants are available. We're talking about infrastructure. We just mentioned, we talked about what are you thinking about with your buildings, your current buildings, your new buildings. Where are you going to put these chargers? One of the things that I wanted to bring up is just, it's a great idea I had talking with the gentleman in the last conference I went to. Everyone's talking about chargers, but really no one's talking about battery storage. You got to think about where is it going to be. We've all maybe heard about peak and off-peak charging times, right? So it's obviously cheaper to charge at night. Especially important for someone like me. We have sheriff's operations that run 24/7. If we do make that transition over to electrical vehicles, you can charge those battery storage units at night, and then those batteries can be used to charge vehicles throughout the day. So that's one of the things I just wanted to get out there. People should, obviously the chargers always take front and center, but there is an opportunity as well for money savings with the battery units. The other thing really quickly too is, obviously electrical is so cool and interesting and front and center, and Teslas are really cool, and I got to drive a Mach 1 Mustang, but we can't lose track of our current infrastructure as well. I'm at that crossroads being in DPW right now where I have a capital project where I have 30-year-old underground tanks that need to be replaced. I can't let them sit any longer. I don't want to let them sit any longer. But this is a great time to think about right-sizing your operations, maybe looking at your mileages and your vehicle counts. Currently, I have a bunch of different sites with two 10,000-gallon tanks, diesel and unleaded. I don't think I'm going to need 10,000 gallon tank of unleaded in 5 to 10 years. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to right size my operation, going from 2 10,000 gallon tanks, combined 20, down to a 10 that's a split tank, that's a 75-25, that still lets me get a full load in, so we don't have to pay extra shipping costs for, because a tanker holds about 7,500 gallons. Again, for some of the people who are in fleet or in DPW, this would be super interesting for them. But it's just something to think about. We can't neglect our current fuel infrastructure as we transition away from it, but we do need to be mindful to right size it. So.
Awesome, thank you. Sanjay, we'll kick it over to you. What can we expect for the future of connected mobility?
Sure, thanks, Andrew. Mobility. So let's maybe start with a definition. Everybody has a different definition of mobility, and mobility actually in different locations, people will, I think that people use it differently. So that's starting with that. So as kind of we define it, mobility is the movement of people and goods across all modes of transportation. If you look at that broadly, then we're talking about connected mobility as the ability of all these modes of transportation to be able to then connect and share data, so communicate, connect, share data, and even make decisions eventually to enable, and of course they have to enable something, right, to enable more of a timely, affordable, and what we call safe movement of data, movement of people and goods across the modes of transportation. So if we talk about that as the core, it's pretty broad as we start looking at connected mobility, and of course as we start looking at again, the impact of EVs, and eventually, as I mentioned, the autonomous vehicles that are coming sometime in the future. Though we've always said that they'll be here by 2020, and here we are post 2020. They're still not at least commercially available. I mean, they're available, not out there running on the roads as much as we thought they would. But anyway, stepping back to connected mobility. So connected mobility, in my mind, it really comes together. It brings together key technologies like connectivity. That of course has been changing, went from analog to digital, over-the-air connectivity to now 4G to 5G and all. That's eventually 6G is being talked about. So that's going to continue on. Cloud computing has enabled that, and of course the sensor technology has enabled a lot of the capabilities. And now more recently, we're seeing all the advanced analytics moving into AI, ML. So those are some of the key technologies that are really driving the connected mobility area, if you want to call it, into the future. So as we look at the future of connected mobility, really in a lot of ways, the vehicle, and when I say vehicle, I'm broadly calling vehicle, it can be a car, truck. Eventually, we'll be talking about drones and others too. But the cars and trucks at this point, they are largely becoming computers on the road. And they are pretty much large computers. I mean, we all are holding small computers in our pockets right now in the form of smartphones. But cars are much bigger, so they certainly have a lot more computing power. They can do a lot more. So that's where we see the confluence of all these technologies coming together. So that's the technology perspective. So that's the piece where the vehicles are becoming enabled with all these technologies and all the capabilities. Where we see the certain things that are still are slow to move to the next, I guess, phase and slow to evolve are really the road infrastructure, and we've talked quite a bit about that, right? The road infrastructure hasn't really caught up yet. There is technologies available from a connectivity perspective, from the sensor technology perspective, but the investments have not been there. Some of the standardization has also been lacking in some ways. And the equivalent to that is the vehicle-to-vehicle communication. That also has been very slow to come by. And I think that's in addition to the investments and standardization, the problem there also is the diversity, because each automaker wants to have its own different control on the communication. That's been some of the problems. So that goes back to standardization. As we look at the larger mobility ecosystem, that's where once those two components come together, it'd be very interesting to see how the entire, what I'd call connected mobility ecosystems gets formed, where vehicles will be able to talk to the infrastructure. Certainly they're talking to the cloud and be able to share data, talk to other vehicles on the road, and truly be able to work together to be able, as I said, to share information, but more than share information, make decisions for us. And that's where I see eventually the future of connected mobility. And it becomes an enabler for a lot of other things. It'll drive efficiency. It'll drive certainly a lot of safety. It'll increase safety on the roads. And at the same time, I feel like it is also a precursor for a lot of the autonomous vehicles that need to be there on the road. Without the connected mobility infrastructure or ecosystem in place, we will have trouble getting the autonomous vehicles on the road in a broad way.
Awesome. Thank you, Sanjay. Megha, currently a large percentage of publicly available EV chargers are in more densely populated areas with growing EV adoption rates. How is the state getting the word out and sharing the benefits surrounding EV charging as it relates to the EV corridors and the NEVI program, notably in some of the more rural and some of the historically underserved communities here in Illinois?
So a large part of that problem is solved by federal guidelines. They've asked us to designate corridors, and then the chargers have to be 50 miles away from each other. So if I look at some of, and on today, right? 28th, it's today. Yeah, so today we're going to have our first stakeholder meeting that IDOT's going to hold, where we're going to gather. We're going to invite stakeholder input on what the NEVI plan should look like. But the state has already designated corridors, and they go north to south, east to west, and are not concentrated in Chicago, Metroland, and in St. Louis, where currently most chargers are, as you rightly point out. And that is a problem that the state has. We have two problems. We don't have enough chargers, and then we have them focused in these few metro areas. And those are problems that we definitely have to solve. So with NEVI, the corridors are reflective, and I'm just 2 years into Illinois, so I don't know the name of the corridors. Otherwise, I could have given you some numbers. But north to south, east to west, kind of crisscross them quite uniformly. And the idea is to build them out, is that have chargers every 50 miles. And when we design the procurement for this, we'll also ensure that we don't have a lopsided deployment of chargers. That I don't know. I mean, those things will be discussed as the stakeholder, but a potential way to do that is to combine a high utilization charger in a metro area with something which has a lower utilization. And as somebody, if you're going to bid on one, you're going to have to take the other. So there are various procurement techniques that you could use to do that. The second thing is that besides NEVI, we also have our EPA programs, almost $70 million in EV charging rebates. The first one, and the Volkswagen program. So Volkswagen, we had to focus in 3 priority areas because that's where the impacts of the vehicles were, which were again, coincide with the metro areas. But now we have this other money, and the way we're going to look at it is we are going to make sure that we don't have bald patches of charging in the state. We will have geographic concentration of how we design these programs so that we get charging that is outside the traditional metro areas. So these are some ideas, let's wait and watch and how all of this materializes. But this is the intent as we go into this.
Awesome. Thanks, Megha. Thomas, how important is networking amongst government or municipal agencies?
Thank you. And I can follow it up with just a question. Why do you think I'm here today? I am not even a big fish in a small pond in Waukesha County in Wisconsin, right? When I come here and I see that the deputy commissioner for Chicago is here talking and all these other great people, I'm here to pick up ideas. I'm here to learn. I worked a substantial amount of time in the private sector, and what I found was it was extremely difficult to try to call up your competitor and try to get information on how I can save money on my business. What I found in the public transit industry, and then more so even in municipal, is I can call people up and what are you doing? What's working for you? Are these tires working for you? Have we seen that gas prices are going up? I have a great relationship with the fleet manager for the city of Milwaukee. They've been running a bunch of hybrid Explorers. He's got some great telematics data. So what are we doing? Now we're going to beta test some cars as well. And then we're going to share that with the other municipalities because we're just whatever we can do to make things better and more efficient. And I would follow that up too, just to get a show of hands. Who's involved with an advisory committee or on a technical board for a college or university? Or junior college. Yeah, that's not enough hands. So I've gotten to that point in my life where I'm kind of the middle-aged guy now, right? And I remember the people who helped me when I started out my career, who mentored me and taught me and showed me and led me in a good direction. And now it's our turn to do that. If you're not involved with a technical college, very great speech by Albert, very passionate about what he's done and risen up through the ranks. And I feel kind of the same way, because I started out, if you would believe it, I started out washing garbage trucks for Waste Management when I was in high school. And I worked my way up to where I am today, but I wouldn't have got to where I am today without that help and mentorship and leadership. If you're not, I serve on the technical committees for my local college, and not only do I just go to the meetings, but if you're not having 50-cent tours and bringing the students to where your place of business is and showing them around, if you get one kid out of that whole program, that's a success, right? And even if you don't get someone hired on, at least you show them what you do. Show them what you do and why are you passionate about what you do and what your business is. And I think it's just really important. I do mentorship training. How do you write a resume? How do you prepare for an interview? How should you dress? Just simple things that you can really help people out. So I'm just really passionate about it. And like I said, if you can get involved with your college or your university, it's just a great thing as far as mentorship and being a leader, and also maybe help your business or the public sector. So thank you.
Great, Tom. Thank you. And I'm going to pick your brain about the mentorship that you're doing outside in the lobby after we finish here. I think that's awesome. And then Sanjay, kind of to close us out here, why should we as drivers and passengers of vehicles be excited about the advancements in smart mobility? What are some use cases that you've seen that have been enabled by this?
Thanks, Andrew. Before I answer that, I do want to go back to the previous question. I think in addition to, I'd say, the partnership between public, groups, I think private-public partnership is another big one. Not just universities. I feel like that there's not enough of that going on. And that's where I really hope that more of that will happen, because that's really going to open up a lot more of the space and opportunities and growth in this area, because both need to be participating and really collaborating. Sorry, just wanted to make that point and make that plug. Going back to the use cases. So on that, I think it's actually a great point that a lot of times we talk about connected vehicles or electric vehicles from the perspective, many of us actually talk about it from the perspective of technology. And I did start off with the conversation in the future also as to where technologically it's going, right? So sure, the technology will take us there, but what's the use? Why should we as consumers be excited about it, right? Why the heck would we be going and buying, say, a connected vehicle car or an electric car vehicle or anything like that? And especially connectivity. And having come from OnStar, I can say that the first few years, many years within OnStar was always a battle trying to explain why connectivity, why telematics was important, and why people should be buying it, whether it was safety, security, or other reasons, right? So there's a whole list of, I think, services that we can go through, but I'll call out a couple of them that'll be interesting. Show of hands, anybody who's using, or I say, how many people are using the remote diagnostics or diagnostic features that their vehicles have? I'm sure almost all vehicles nowadays have the ability to do remote diagnostics. So again, not enough people here who either are aware or are using it. But there have been many situations where you're driving on the road and your light comes on, and you start to think, okay, check engine light. Is it something serious? Do I need to stop now? Or is it something I can work on it or get it looked at when I get home? That thing can be done or taken care of through a remote diagnostic. You can just either make a call or have a remote technician remotely access your vehicle over the air and be able to do a diagnostic and say, yep, it's good at this point, you can drive, or in some situations say, no, stop, because it's a serious situation, you should not be driving. So that's that level of ability of somebody being able to do diagnosis on the vehicle remotely that's currently available in vehicles. You extend that over to, as I mentioned, some of the future, right? The ubiquitous connectivity coming with 5G, as well as the AI ML that's coming in, the machine learning algorithms that are coming in. That'll enable the vehicles to, on their own, do prognostics and be able to say, okay, there is a problem going on in the vehicle, be able to determine what the problem is, let you know what the problem is potentially. And even in many situations, the hope is being able to reach out to the system in the cloud and download a fix. And that way, the fix is also taken care of, so you don't even need to go to a repair shop to get that fixed. So those are some of the things that connected vehicles, again, will enable as features going forward, which are more, as consumers, we should get excited about. Because they'll save money, they'll save time, which is converts to money oftentimes, but a lot of times that's also safety, because that also eliminates the need for us oftentimes to get stuck on a road, maybe in the middle of the night, so in an odd place and an odd time of the day, and then, of course, that becomes a safety and a hazard situation, right? So we want to avoid that, the issue. The other one, which again, I don't think enough people use, is the usage-based insurance. I don't know if any people have heard about that, but that's another one that's been talked about for quite a while, but really has not, I'd say, matured or grown or made available. And think of the classic situation, right? During COVID, during the pandemic, a lot of us stopped driving, or at least reduced a lot of our driving. But we still continue to pay the same amount of insurance from a car insurance perspective. There was no adjustment to a large extent on our insurance payments based on our driving. While that's where usage-based insurance comes in, because the less you drive, the less you'd be paying, because there's less risk, because the vehicle is probably sitting in the driveway or in the garage. So that's where some of those features, right? So, and I think that's another thing that some insurance companies offer it, but not widely available right now. But as connectivity, as connected vehicles become more and more broadly available, I should say, the connectivity becomes broader and ubiquitous connectivity comes along, that's where we'll start seeing some better and more availability of those. And finally, I think I touched on the road safety. Once we get to a fully connected mobility in ecosystem, there is the many road safety use cases will become realistic, where situations where a vehicle is coming through, maybe through an intersection at high speed, but it's coming through a blind intersection, and being able to know that my vehicle would know that another driver is coming in and be able to respond to that, or at least tell me that that's happening. That alone would cut down on accidents. There are many such situations where a communication between the vehicle intersection and other vehicles would make the roadways and overall transportation and basically roadways much safer to drive on. So those are some of the key use cases that come to mind. I can talk a lot more about a lot more use cases, but I think Andrew will be very angry with me if I go too much over. So I'll stop, but happy to talk after the panel if there's any other questions or any other specific items that anybody's interested in. Thanks, Dan.
The floor is yours. Don't worry about me. You're good. But yeah, we're just at about time, so I just want to say thank you to our panelists. If anybody has any questions or comments, by all means, grab any of us out in the lobby. But it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks again.